The Super Bowl rematch was a dud. Two more veteran quarterbacks break bones in their body, and Joe Thomas's Iron Man streak comes to an end. Hey, welcome to SI Now. Maggie, Robin, the Pro Bowler, and the co-host of Tiki and Tierney on CBS Sports Radio, Tiki Barber, is here with us as he is every Monday. Let's just start with the debacle, if you're a Falcons fan, from Sunday night. You called it last week, Tiki, that the Falcons' offense is just not comfortable yet in Steve Sarkisian's offense.
Right.
Peter King this morning in his MMQB column says that the offensive play calling should be taken out of Sark's hands.
I don't know if you take it out of his hands, but you do have to get him back on the sidelines. If you remember in the preseason, they were debating, you're going to be in the press box, you're going to be on the sideline. Now, I had some experience with this in my playing years. John Huffnagel was our offensive coordinator. He used to sit in the box. And I remember there would be games where things would be happening on the field, and the energy is just different down there. You've been in press boxes, and you've been off of the field. It's chiller, right? It's quieter. And so you can't really feel the energy or the urgency of a quarterback or wide receiver or running back, whoever, telling you what's happening, right? This is what they're trying to do. Let's adjust and do this. If you're in the press box, you don't feel that. And so getting him back on the sideline is the first thing that they have to do. And then secondly, I think they have to get more creative. They have so much talent in the red zone, so much talent on this team in the skill positions, but in the red zone, they get vanilla and they get benign. And so as a result, they are still in the top 10 offense in the National Football League, but they're 15th, 16th, 17th in scoring. And that's been the big difference. They made a ton of mistakes down there, and a lot of it is the plays that are called.
If you take the play calling away from the offensive coordinator, what exactly is his job at that
you
point?
fire him.
Anyway,
You're fired.
They're struggling, but it was the Patriots' defense that got that done. And it feels as if we're always looking for the downfall of New England. Even earlier in the day, you could have said the Bills and the Dolphins have the same record as the Patriots. Are we back to business as usual for them?
You know what? We have, obviously, Tom Brady being amazing. He's leading the league in passing again. Their offense has never missed a beat. Defensively, we knew they'd figure it out. It's Bill Belichick, right? He might not have all the right pieces, but he'll scheme things to make things more difficult for opposing offenses. But if you go back to this game, again, it comes back to play calling. It was a fourth down play that was called in this game. It was a jet sweep. You know when they run jet sweeps? You do it in college when you find a weakness.
Jet sweep is usually what the Patriots do to New York.
Yes, well, you do it in college when you find a weakness, right? That cornerback or that slot receiver has no idea how to react to someone coming to block him from the outside. Let's run a jet sweep at him. That doesn't work in the National Football League, especially in critical situations. So again, it goes back to the play calling of Steve Sarkisian.
Now let's go back to the Falcons. We're going to give you a list of some teams that could be in trouble, and you give us the designation, injury style in the NFL, whether they're probable, questionable, doubtful, or out. And we will start with the Atlanta Falcons. Where would you designate them?
I'd say they are questionable right now. And it really is just because of the play calling. All of the talent is there. It's a very similar team as it was last year. Skill position-wise are the same. Matt Ryan is Matt Ryan. He plays poorly, throws interceptions, but he's unflustered. He's still going to show up every week and not emotionally be a detriment. But the play calling needs to be tweaked. And again, I'll say it, Sark's got to be on the sideline. Your OC has to be down there talking to your quarterback when things are going awry.
Maybe not going for it on 4th and 7, 4th and 8 might be another.
Exactly. At the 50-yard line, by the way.
And then give Tom Brady a short field and it's good night. What about the Packers? How would you designate them with Brett Hundley? Not doubtful. Exactly the second best Brett that we've seen in Lambeau.
No, they're doubtful. This Green Bay Packers team had issues. Some of them were injury related, so it's not really play caller or player fault. But this team had issues. Aaron Rodgers solved them because he's Aaron Rodgers. Now, with Brett Hundley, I don't want to say he's swimming in it because I think he's been there for 3 years and he knows this system, but execution-wise, he's not anywhere near what they're used to having there to pull themselves out of some of the mistakes that happen. So they're doubtful to me, especially with the North being very interesting how some of these teams are going to start rising.
What about the Broncos? Offensively challenged and new to the struggle zone, it feels like, but they're immersed in it right now.
Yeah, they're also questionable because, you can't put a team that has the #1 defense in the National Football League is completely out of it or doubtful. Their defense is great. They're fantastic, and they always will be fantastic. But we know what happens when a defense is forced to be on the field all the time. Now, for the past 2 weeks, loss to the Chargers that we just saw, and last 2 weeks ago, a loss to the New York Giants, Trevor Siemian just struggled, right? And it's not, it's partly his fault, but it's partly the play calling's fault. right? You get caught into this system where you have to run the ball, you have to run the ball, you have to run the ball. It's great until teams put 8, 9 guys in the box and you have to throw the ball. And so they asked Trevor Siemian to do things that he just can't do. Now, he thinks he can, right? You see him like flinging it into tight coverage or throwing these route combinations that should seem routine for an elite quarterback. He's just not that. And over the last 2 weeks, 3 interceptions, or three turnovers in each of those last 2 weeks. And it's been difference makers against a team they should have beat 2 weeks ago with the Giants and the team they could have beat last week against the Chargers.
Finally, what about the Panthers? We know Cam Newton, his post-game hat choice is definitely questionable, but how would you designate the
But
team?
he looks good doing it, at least in his own mind, right?
Beauty's in the eye of the
got the
beholder,
Carolina
Tiki.
blue.
Hey, I don't know why I wore this blue today, but anyways, look, this team is not far away, Carolina. So I'm gonna put them as questionable as well. I do believe they need to find a way to feature Christian McCaffrey. I mean, this kid is a stud, and I know early on Ron Rivera said, we don't want to wear him out. He's got to get used to wear him out. I mean, that's what they're here for. So you can pay him for. He's a rookie. Get him the rock, whether it's throwing to him or getting him carries. He only had 7 on the game last week. But if you look at the Chicago Bears game, the Panthers dominated. 38 minutes time possession compared to what to the other side, which was 22 for the Chicago Bears. But it was those 2 huge turnovers that turned the game around. Not any of them anyone's fault really. Tip ball and then a bad pitch that were returned for touchdowns. Chicago took advantage, and that's a good sign for a young Chicago team. They were opportunistic when the opportunities came their way, and were able to win this game with Mitch Trubisky completing 4 passes for 107 yards, and one of them was to a running back for 70. So, I mean, if you can win a game that way, then great. But the Panthers aren't that bad as they kind of looked.
You talk about Trubisky, not a lot of offense around the NFL yesterday. 7 teams didn't register an offensive touchdown, including those Panthers. Some frustration, I'm sure, with their performance. Frustration around the league, though. Martavis Bryant wants out of Pittsburgh and is even getting into arguments on Instagram about it. On the other side of the Pittsburgh win over Cincy, Joe Mixon lamented his lack of touches. And then T.Y. Hilton called out the Colts offensive line. Who amongst those players has the most legitimate gripe?
I'd say Mixon has a legitimate gripe. They had 14 carries amongst the running backs, and those 3 of them, obviously, Joe Mixon and Giovanni Bernard, and I'm forgetting the other guy, Jeremy Hill. So they only had 14 rushing attempts to 30 pass attempts, and he averaged almost 7 yards a carry, Joe Mixon. So yeah, you say we don't need to throw the rock a lot. Andy Dalton has been sometimes great in his career, but sometimes really bad, right? Don't give him the chance to be bad. Hand the rock off. This game wasn't a blowout. They were only down by a point or so at the half. And so run the ball, do things that benefit your stout defense, which is another strong part of their team. But they're putting the ball too much in Andy Dalton's hands. Look, Martavis Bryant, though, he needs to be quiet, right? This offense runs through Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell. Period.
He should play hide and seek on social media like they did in the end zone.
Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell. Period. I want to hear it, right? It's a meritocracy in the National Football League. It is particularly so in Pittsburgh. You have to earn the right to have a gripe about not getting the ball. Now, Juju Schuster-Smith has obviously taken some of those catches, including the touchdown that you were talking about, where he played hide and seek with Le'Veon Bell, which was awesome. T.Y. Hilton, it just sucks to be without Andrew Luck. I mean, it's a gripe, but what's he going to do about it?
I mean, I feel like it's so sacrilegious. You're a running back. You can't call out your offensive line. I thought you're supposed to love these guys.
You should. I mean, you should be buying them gifts, and they should be buying you steak dinners, but that's not happening.
You ever buy your offensive line Rolexes and stuff?
Panerized.
Okay, there you go. Generous. Okay, instead of a 45-minute flight from Phoenix to LA, the Cardinals and Rams decided to fly 10 hours to London just so that Arizona could get smoked. Carson Palmer broke his left arm. Adrian Peterson followed up his stellar debut with a whimper. And the Cardinals are 3-4. Now, it's hard to be optimistic about the Cardinals this season, but Tiki, what about their future? What needs to happen?
Rondé Barber was on that call, by the way.
He was. He did a great job.
He did, especially in a blowout. It's hard to think about what the future is for the Cardinals, but you probably had to start thinking about it this offseason, this previous offseason, because Carson Palmer is thinking about retiring. Now, if they were bad enough, you'd say, oh, go draft a quarterback. But they're not horrible. Not a team that's going to win 2 games on the season. But there is an option out there that could come available. Alex Smith And I think we talked about this earlier on this show. At some point,
he's in a contract year.
Exactly, he's in a contract year. He's not necessarily free, but the dead money on his contract is only $3 or $4 million. So if they decide to move on and go with Pat Mahomes, which may be hard for the Chiefs to do because he's playing so unbelievable, but if they should, Arizona would be the perfect landing spot for him. Now, it's a team that's aged a little bit, very aged, to be honest with you. And the window is probably very tight. But if you have a decent defense and you have a good running game, assuming David Johnson comes back, you get maybe another year out of Larry Fitzgerald. Somehow, this guy is ageless. He could be a good fit there. I mean, otherwise you got to blow the whole thing up and start over.
Well, also you're likely to have a top 10 pick if things keep going south. So
yes.
You could have a very high pick that instead of using it on a quarterback, you could use it wherever you need it.
You're right.
Have we gotten to the point with Colin Kaepernick where it's just assumed he's not going to be signed, so he's not even brought up in these conversations?
It's not happening. It's not going to happen because of the lawsuit that he filed last 2 weekends ago. It's just it creates too much of a drama headache for owners. So we'd love to talk about it. I just don't think it's going to happen.
I mean, they signed Blaine Gabbert.
Yeah.
The Cardinals did.
Exactly.
I think that's all the proof that you need.
We're full circle with the 49ers.
Yes,
Smith,
we are.
Blaine Gabbert,
Didn't realize we were going there.
Who got benched for Colin Kaepernick last season.
Most significant win from this week belongs to him.
You know, I got to say Jacksonville.
Yeah.
And it's only because, look, do I believe in them yet? No. But they're riding this roller coaster. It's like win, loss, win, loss, win. Now they have a bye week, so they lose the loss week and the bye week, and then they have to come back the next week, and I think they play Cincinnati. So hopefully they can put on a streak of wins. Look, people will laud Blake Bortles for this game that he had. 300 yards, 330 yards, a couple touchdowns. Oh, he looks like more than a game manager. He's not. He's a game manager, right? Indy's defense stinks. But the Jacksonville Jaguars defense is for real legit, right? Calais Campbell's got 10 sacks. He's leading the league. Yannick Ngakoue has got 6.5. Fowler's got 5.5. Their secondary with A.J. Boye and Tayshaun Gibson, they're fantastic all the way around.
Barry Church.
Barry Church is there. Miles Jack. I mean, every single position on this defense is opportunistic. They're aggressive. They're good. They don't make mistakes. Jacksonville can prove something if they get on a win streak and stop riding that roller coaster. And it started with this win against Indy.
I don't mean to laugh, but it is ironic when Gus Bradley, who's supposed to be this big defensive
know.
guru, that he leaves and they have the best
you're
defense in the league. All right, we're going to finish it off here because we think that we have a new nickname for you. This was a split in the newsroom whether or not we like this. Tiki Damas. We noticed you make predictions that come true a week later. We find ourselves saying, didn't Tiki say this last week? So let's tap into that. Give us a prediction that we're going to be talking about next week.
I think next week we may be talking about the we may be talking about the Los Angeles Chargers being, one, playoff viable, and Anthony Lynn being in position to get Coach of the Year. So look at their losses. They lose by 3 to Denver, then they lose by 2, then they lose, and the Chiefs blow them out, but then they lose by 2. It was these tight losses where they started the season 0-4. Now, all of a sudden, something flipped. And again, it's tight wins, but it started to flip. 3 wins in a row now, including against the Raiders, and then last week we just saw against the different Broncos. They're beating the good teams in their division, and they're not that far behind. Next week now, they got to go to New England and play the Patriots. Now, if they beat the Patriots, which I'm not saying they will, but there's a good chance that they could, because they don't lose big, except for the Chiefs. We could be saying this Chargers team is the team to surprise us into the postseason.
Just say they'll beat the Patriots. It'll look way better next week.
Okay. The Los Angeles, I almost said San Diego again. The Los Angeles Chargers beat the New England Patriots.
Wow, there's a prediction for you. Tiki Damas, Tiki Barber, and with us every Monday. Appreciate that, Tiki.
Thank you, guys.
Of course, the Dodgers are back in the World Series for the first time since 1988. Here's a look back at their first championship in 1955 with the incomparable Vin Scully.
Good evening, everybody. And despite the fact that I have just knocked a cup of coffee in my lap and a suit that's just out of the cleaners, it's great to be home.
Put me back into Ebbets Field, if you will, because obviously a lot of today's fans, they read about it, they know it historically, but they don't really know the feel of the ballpark. Paint for me, the sights, the sound, even the smells of that little diamond in Flatbush.
Well, first of all, to the People today, they see big stadiums or carefully architecturally designed to hold 40,000. Ebbets Field was just a small ballpark built really on the garbage area in Brooklyn. There was an intimacy with the crowd. Today's ballparks, the crowds are like wallpaper. They make sounds, but you're not rare of individuals. So that to me is the biggest single difference between modern day baseball, big stadia, and then Little Ebbets Field.
It was October 4th, 1955. 3:45 p.m., and you're the only one who's ever been able to say these words. Ladies and gentlemen, the Brooklyn Dodgers are champions of the world.
Right, and that's all I could have said. Had I tried to say something else, I probably would have broken down. I was so happy for those players whom I knew well, whose frustrations and anguish I knew well because I'd been with them since 1950. So when they finally win, I really felt for their happiness. It was a marvelous feeling. When that ball was in the glove of Gil Hodges and it was all over, and we went through the tunnel, when we came out on the other side, it wasn't baseball and it wasn't football. It was like VE Day and VJ Day. Thousands of people partying out. It was amazing. There always was, I think, a sense of us against the world in Brooklyn. And Brooklyn was always made fun of, and all the service war movies, the guy from Brooklyn always spoke funny and dumb. And all. So this was the answer to the lordly spires of New York. They beat them finally, and it was just incredible.
We really got the blues about what's happening in Brooklyn. It ain't official yet. We hope official it don't get.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Ben Scully speaking to you from the Los Angeles Coliseum as opening day has finally come to Southern California.
I've been asked several times now already, what will you miss the most when you retire? I said the crowd, the roar of the crowd. It absolutely enthralled me when I was 8 years old, and here's a kid in a walk-up fifth floor apartment in New York. I had crawled under the big radio we had in the living room. It wasn't the teams or the players, the roar.
And look who's coming up.
That really started me in the direction of broadcasting, and I was about 8. So now, when I'm in the booth, Kirk Gibson hits a home run, the place goes bananas. I shut up, I sit there, and for that little moment of time, I'm 8 years old.
High fly ball into right field. She is gone!
Well, you know, in 2014, SI predicted the Astros would be world champs this season. Well, now they have their chance against the Dodgers. Robin, do you think the Astros can make good on Sports Illustrated and Ben Reiter's prediction that they're going to win it all this year?
Sure, I think they definitely can. And for the sake of it looking really cool, I'll say that they will. You know, this is as close to a coin flip of a series as you can get. I mean, there are very small differences between these two teams, but when you look at Houston, they keep coming. You know, the Yankees and the Dodgers, some would say that's the matchup everybody wanted, but Houston spoiled it, and they've got a guy in Jose Altuve who, to me, is the most exciting player to watch in the sport. He's one of the rare baseball players who I feel like impacts every facet of the game, and that infiltrates the rest of the roster in the way that the team plays. So sure, they can pull it off.
Yeah, he's coming up with timely hits every time that they need it. I just am curious that if the Astros get down early in this series, are they going to be able to come back? We saw them come back against the Yankees, but they did stake themselves to a 2-0 lead. So they had something to recall and look back on and say, hey, we've done this before at home. We can do it again. And obviously they made good on that. Who do you think is going to be under the most pressure in this World Series?
This is an easy answer. I mean, it's got to be Clayton Kershaw, right? I mean, to be sort of unfair, his entire career could be defined by this World Series.
Wow.
No matter what, he's a great pitcher. right? That regardless of what happens. But the way he is perceived and viewed in the echelon of greatness could be dramatically altered. If he goes out there and struggles, it's going to be tough for him to ever shake the label of not coming through in the clutch. If he goes out there and is lights out and the Dodgers win, people will then immediately after the World Series begin the discussion of, is Clayton Kershaw the best pitcher of all time? So the pressure is squarely on him.
I think there's so much pressure on Justin Verlander in this series because he's got everything. There is no accolade and award that he has not won in his career with the Detroit Tigers, now with the Houston Astros. And at 34 years old, he's going to turn 35 in February. This is the one thing missing. And what makes it even tougher is that he's already been in the World Series 2 times before this and laid eggs in both of those series. And when you get swept in one series and you lose 4-1 in another, after you have all the momentum, have everything going for you. You're such a dominant team in the regular season. Actually, the Giants had the momentum coming in to that World Series. But to be swept and then to only lose one game, I feel like Verlander has everything riding on his shoulders. I mean, he's got the Cy Youngs, he's got the MVPs, he's got the Rookie of the Years, he's got it all, but he's never been able to win. And while maybe nobody's going to say, okay, Justin Verlander is the best pitcher of all time, I believe that Clayton Kershaw is going to have more opportunities to go back to the World Series, whereas Justin Verlander, this could be it. This could be his 3rd and final trip. And if he doesn't get the ring this time, I mean, then your heart is just going to that rips it right out of your chest, because he could always look back and say, what could I have done?
Now, we talk about how thin the difference is between these two teams. What do you think will be the biggest difference in the series?
Probably bullpen. I mean, I think that's probably the easiest answer, because both of the offenses are completely potent, and then you have these rotations that are just absolutely nasty. When you have Kershaw and Yu Darvish, who's going to pitch Game 3, as he's been doing throughout the postseason, and then, of course, you have Dallas Keuchel, and then you have Justin Verlander. I mean, starters, I think we're going to get some major pitching duels here, but then when it does go to the bullpen, where you have the Dodgers with the best closer in the game, how can the Astros hold up? I mean, if you need Lance McCullers Jr. to throw 24 straight curveballs like he did against the Yankees, I think that the Astros could be in trouble.
Yeah, if you're looking at hitting, it's close to a wash. If you're looking at starting pitching, it's close to a wash. I'd probably give the edge to the Astros defensively, and then you're right, the edge to the Dodgers in the bullpen, especially with Kenley Jensen at the back of that bullpen. The other small difference, I think, could happen on the base paths, and I favor Houston there.
Yeah, a lot of speed on the base paths. All right, we should talk about the NBA a little bit, shall we? The 3 games in his NBA career, and Lonzo Ball has already been shut down by Patrick Beverley, been 1 assist shy of a triple-double against the Suns, then watched from the bench as his team tried to mount a comeback against the Pelicans. Not exactly killing it a week into the season. So, Robin, perfect time to drop your new single, right? Lonzo's latest track, it's called Super Saiyan. It's a Dragon Ball Z.
Dragon Ball Z, yeah.
I don't know.
It's like when you get the pellet in the corner in Pac-Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're invincible for a while, or the hot tag in pro wrestling, or the star in Mario Brothers.
Yeah, taking your word for it. I know the star. Is this the right time for Lonzo to be releasing a track?
I don't think it really matters. I mean, I'm focused more on Lonzo Ball, the basketball player. I believe LeVar Ball has already drawn enough attention where Lonzo Ball could release, an LP, and it wouldn't exactly make a difference at this point. What stands out to me is Lonzo, for his game to flourish, he needs good players around him. Because right now, he really struggles getting his own shot and creating for himself, and he struggled with his shot. Clearly, his strength lies in getting his teammates involved, and he doesn't have those teammates right now. And I think the Lakers are going to wind up ruining the trade of D'Angelo Russell to Brooklyn, because to me, those two guys would pair very well in a backcourt. Russell can get his own shot, also has very good court vision, and they did it for the hope of eventually maybe signing a free agent. If they don't land that star free agent and D'Angelo Russell turns into a star-level player, they're going to look back at that one.
Yeah, I mean, that's a woulda, coulda, shoulda, who knows, but I feel like the Lakers wanted to get rid of Mozgov's contract. They made a couple wheels and deals. You got Rob Pelinka's new GM. Magic is in there. I'm worried, though. You mentioned one thing about Lonzo doesn't have the teammates that he hopes to be passing to and distributing to one day. If you keep dropping tracks a week after you were like this up and down, and you already had one NBA player publicly call you out saying, I came in here to shut you down because your father and because of everything that comes along with Big Baller Brand, I don't understand how you think it's a good idea to drop a mixtape. I mean, if you're going to be in LA for a long time, presumably he's going to be a big star. You're going to have plenty of time to be dropping singles all over the place. And I listened to the track, and some of the stuff is newsworthy, but if you're really that good at spitting rhymes, you should be able to update that in a couple months and maybe maybe a year or so. I get a little bit worried about Lonzo, and I think we should talk about this. I mean, are we sure that Hollywood hasn't gone to his head? And let's be honest, the best players can do both. Dame Lillard can do both. But Lonzo hasn't proven to me yet that he's Dame Lillard. And Lonzo hasn't proven that he can have outside ventures and all these other things and still get it done on the court. He's a rookie, and I'm not saying he needs to stay in his lane like LeVar would say to a lot of people. But I will say this. I mean, appearances are, perception can be reality in a lot of these situations. And I think that if he had just waited a couple months, I mean, at least wait till the All-Star break, I feel like he's going to cost himself an even bigger target on his back than he already has.
You know how we'll know when it's gone too far? When a Kardashian gets involved.
How many more do we have left? Are there any more Kardashians coming in the pipeline?
I can't keep up. The only team the Lakers have beaten is the Phoenix Suns, and they are in turmoil. They already fired Coach Earl Watson, and guard Eric Bledsoe said, quote, "I don't want to be here." On Twitter yesterday afternoon, we're assuming he was referencing Phoenix and not that he was like sitting waiting at a dressing room somewhere in a shopping mall. Is that the appropriate way to voice those concerns?
Is an appropriate way. In a way, it actually hurts his team. It really does, because it's clear that he wants out, obviously, and he's been dangled in trade rumors now for 2 seasons at least. But does it hurt your trade value a little bit when you are this public about wanting to go out? Because now if you're Ryan McDonough, you're the general manager of the Suns, who also should probably take a lot of the blame for having one of the youngest teams in the NBA and not surrounding them with good veterans to try to get the most out of them, Tyson Chandler aside. But Bledsoe doesn't want to be the babysitter here. They should have moved him when they had the chance, and now they know that he's this unhappy. I think it's going to be harder for them to get full value for Eric Bledsoe.
Well, that's the Phoenix Suns side of this. Let me go to Eric Bledsoe's side. To me, this makes a lot of sense, really, because, one, the Suns are absolutely horrid. And then, two, let's say he's gone to management behind closed doors and said, hey, I'd really like a trade, and nothing has moved on it. By doing it, he might force some sort of action because they're probably at the point of no return. Meanwhile, the Warriors haven't had quite the season we all envisioned, but they did give us something unique in their loss to Memphis Saturday night. 2 ejected MVPs. Steph Curry was thrown out for throwing his mouthpiece in the direction of an official, and Kevin Durant was tossed for arguing with the same ref. Maybe he wanted to go check Twitter to see what was being said about the Warriors' 1-2 start. Do you make anything of this?
I do. Let's not pretend that Steph Curry is some perfect being who's incapable of pulling bonehead moves. This is not the first time he's thrown the mouthpiece. It's like the second or the third. And you know what? It's absolutely disgusting, and he should get fined for it. Fans are explaining away this behavior from Curry, and I'm just a little bit concerned that he's entered into this new stratosphere. He's in the Gronkowski and Marshawn Lynch, where there's a different set of rules for him than anyone else, everyone else. And I don't like that. What Steph Curry did was not only flat out gross, I feel like it is so immature for a 2-time MVP and on one of the best teams. I get it, you're in the heat of the moment, but act like you've been there before. You cannot be throwing your mouthpiece anywhere towards the referee. Marshawn Lynch can't be grabbing the referee. All of these things, right? We just can't pretend like Steph Curry is some angel. When he does things like this, he should be called out for them.
You know, the Warriors can be cocky and they can get chippy when they're frustrated. As far as Steph Curry's involvement here, I think I'm going to try something and land right in the middle, because he was infallible, as you've mentioned, and been held to such a high esteem, which causes a backlash from other people who will say, hey, if LeBron James did the same thing, he'd be totally excoriated for it, which is probably right. I guess if LeBron threw his headband, that's his equivalent apparel item to what Steph Curry has in the mouthpiece. But I'm not going to go too far the other way either. He didn't hit the ref. It was clearly a moment of frustration. Nobody's really hurt. So the real reaction comes from how much reaction we have to what Steph Curry did.
It's just disgusting. And what would be worse, if it hit a fan? Yuck. You want that in your popcorn?
If he was really a good shot, it would like bounce off something and go right back in his mouth.
in the hoop. We're reacting to the weekend in college football with our own Pete Mundo, who is here with us. Pete, 2 marquee games in prime time and 2 blowouts. First, let's talk about Notre Dame. They destroyed USC, winning by 35 points. Now, we presume if they win out, they will have a place in the college football playoff. But we saw this with the Big 12. With no conference championship games, sometimes teams are on the outside looking in. Could that happen to an independent like Notre Dame?
Not sure it will, Maggie, but it should. You mentioned Big 12 in the first year. You had Baylor and TCU as co-champions. And the whole thing was, well, there's no true champion. There was no conference championship game, so the Big 12 was left out. I went ahead and I looked up the protocol for the College Football Playoff Committee. And the first line says here, establish a committee that will be instructed to place an emphasis on winning conference championships, strength of schedule, and head-to-head competition. The first thing they mention is conference championships. If you have multiple one-loss teams, how do you put in Notre Dame? I know it's a marquee program, a big time. Everyone wants to watch Notre Dame, but how do you do it when the number one thing they specify here is conference championships?
Well, they probably go to strength of schedule and just overall popularity, which we know probably should not play a part, but certainly would.
It will. Look at Ohio State last year. I mean, that's case in point. Once Ohio State got in last year, too, that took the whole conference championship thing out of the picture. It really de-emphasized the meaning of these things, which it shouldn't. I really think conference champions should have the first go to get into the college football playoff, assuming there's not, a 2 or 3 loss, something like that. But unless you have a two two-loss Power 5 champions, I don't see how Notre Dame should get in based on the criteria that they say is most important.
Meanwhile, the other marquee blowout was Penn State, Saquon Barkley, and the Nittany Lions over Michigan, 42-13. Should Penn State now be considered the #1 team in the country?
Not yet, Robin. Not yet. I mean, I want to give Alabama the benefit of the doubt just because they're Alabama. They've been destroying everybody as well. I know Penn State's done a really good job. They only have one top 25 win, and that's Michigan over the weekend, who's now fallen out. So I think that game was more about Michigan and all of their issues that they have right now. Can't establish any kind of offense, and the defense has taken a step back big time from last year. So I don't want to go there just yet. They win this week, and then next week at Michigan State. By far, this is the best team in the country based on the games that have been played to this point. But after that one win, I still think Alabama has the edge just because they deserve it.
Okay, yeah, they play Ohio State this week, but let's finish this up with Michigan. Obviously, Jim Harbaugh, the least happy person in Happy Valley on Saturday night. So you look at his tenure. He's 3 years into the head coaching job at Michigan. He has the identical record that Rich Rodriguez had at this moment, and actually Rodriguez had another win over a rival that Jim Harbaugh does not. We know he can recruit. But as far as a coach and the head coach of the Maize and Blue, is he a little bit overrated right now?
6-5 his last 11 games. That's what Jim Harbaugh is. That's average at best. And you mentioned the 25-7 record, the same as I believe it was Brady Hoke.
It was a Hoke.
Through the first 33 games of his tenure. So 97th in the country in pass offense. This is supposed to be a quarterback guy, and he hasn't developed a quarterback through 3 years. It's an awkward year because it's the year between Brady Hoke's guys and his own guys. It just puts a ton of pressure on 2018 because this is going to be probably 4th team in the Big Ten East when you look at Michigan State and Penn State and Ohio State. So Jim Harbaugh has not had a good season and a half. He's not feeling the heat. He's a Michigan guy. They want him to succeed. But when you look at the numbers, you pointed it out, this is average at best this past year for Jim Harbaugh.
Life comes at you fast. I thought he was just a savior. He was just a savior of Michigan football.
No, he went to go see the savior when they went to go see the Pope.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that has not translated so much on the field.
Not yet.
Pete Mundo, appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, that will do it for this Monday episode of SI Now. Thanks so much for watching. Of course, you can keep up to speed on all the latest news and headlines by going to SI.com, and our Twitter handle at SI Now Live has plenty of fun stuff, including clips from the show you just watched. See you tomorrow.